Hey guys, so in this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to use Cursor and we'll develop this to-do list application here. So turn on your favorite lo-fi station and let's get vibe coding. Okay, so first what you'll need to do is install Cursor, of course. So you can just go on their website and whatever platform you're on, you can just download it here. So just download the latest version. And if your machine doesn't have so already, I would recommend installing Node.js. So you have access to the Node CLI as well as a database such as Postgres or say MongoDB if you prefer NoSQL. Okay, and then once you have these installed, you'll want to open up your Cursor. So I would recommend having a new folder for your projects just so once you start using the agent here, then it will automatically persist the files to that folder. Okay, so let's just go get an overview of what we have here. So the left side here is your file system. So you can create new folders and files over here. So we right now don't have anything. Okay, and then in the center here is where your code would be shown. So your file editor would be in the center here. And then on the right side here is the chatbot agent. So you can open and close this through the panel up here. Okay, and then just going over the settings here. So this is just a free account. And if you're already familiar with VS Code, then you can import your settings here. Okay, so I just kept everything here by default. So here, what you want to consider is the models that are enabled. So I'd recommend using Claude as I think that's the leading model right now for coding. And Cursor has this mode called max mode where you can get the maximum tokens in order to get more GPU processing. So you could possibly get better results from the AI model. So again, you'll have to upgrade in order to access max mode. Okay, and then this is a new feature. So these are background agents. So this allows you to run multiple agents asynchronously. Okay, tools and integration. So you can connect to your GitHub directly. So I would recommend doing this as it's what you need to deploy your application and for version control. Okay, and then these are rules in memory. So you can set rules for the models here. Okay, and then memories is the model will learn your preference based on the way you chat. Okay, and then indexing and docs, and then network. So it's just network and then just beta features, and then they have their docs here. Okay, so those are the settings under the free plan. Okay, great. So now let's test out Cursor here. So in order to get the most value out of Cursor, I would recommend that you plan kind of a design doc for your application. So let's go open up a Google Doc and set up like a brief description for our app. Okay, so let's make just a simple to-do list app. So to-do list app. And then let's choose the technology so we can run, say, React on the front end. So React. And then just back end would be, say, Express, Node, Express.js. And then our database would be Postgres. Okay, so in order to vibe code well, you would need to have an understanding of how to program. So as you'll need to ask the model the right questions and in order to get feedback, as you would still need to direct the AI. Okay, so let's just do, say, the core function. So say the database objects. So this is what we're looking to store. So database objects. So let's just do to-dos. So to-dos. Okay. And then we can give it a category or a tag. So let's just say category. So these would be our two database objects that would be involved in this app. We're not going to do any logins for this project, just keeping things simple. Okay, and then as well as if you want to do any pages, so you want to say your views in terms of, say, a website architecture with models, views, and controllers. So here's our models. And then our views would be, say, you can give it, say, the styling. So let's just say for the views, it would be, say, modern layout checklist. And use emoji icons. So that's for the views, and then the controller, so that'll be like the functionality. Okay, so it'll just be, say, an app that allows you to list your to-dos, and when you checkmark it, then it will cross out. Okay, so we can just feed this to the AI and just make it more organized, and then I think this will result in a better output, and you'll save money on tokens as you won't have to go back and forth and make a lot of revisions. Okay, so let's try this out and go back to cursor. Okay, and then over here in the side, I'll just copy over the doc that we made and just paste this. Okay, and then over here is the different modes. So we have agent, as, manual, and background. So agent is when you want it to do the coding for you. As is, of course, you're asking a question. And manual is, it says here, you manually decide what gets added to the context, so no additional tools. So this is the model that I'll use. So it's set to auto, but if you turn this off, then you can choose exactly which model you want to use. So again, by default here, it's using Claude 4 Sonnet, and then you can enable max mode. But I think keeping it at auto would be best, as it's optimized to choose the correct model. But if you have a certain preference, then you can choose your model here or add custom models. Okay, so I'll just keep it to auto. Okay, and then if you have a screenshot of design, then you can add it here. And again, that will help with providing more of the styling, so for the views. Okay. Okay, so just double check here. So I think the stack is here, and then the database objects, and then the views is this layout here, and then the functionality is set here. So let's see what we get. Okay, and click send. It's still creating a directory. And then over here, you can allow it to auto run, but you should just keep it to S every time, because you can skip it or run the command. So since it's already in a directory, I'll do skip this one. Okay, and then now it's going to generate the project. Okay, so I'll just make this window front and center here. Okay, so it created the backend here with Express, and then the front end UI here is created with React, and then over here is just doing the styling now. Okay, after about 5 minutes, it finished the code here, and it gave us a rundown here of what it included. So this is the doc that it outputted. Okay, so we can see here that it followed the modern UI design that we requested, use of emojis. Okay, so I think having a design doc definitely helped with the output compared to just doing something simple like create me a to-do list app, right? Okay, and then their tech stack here. Yep, so this is what we asked for. Okay, and the product structure here. So we got the backend handled by Express, and the front end is using React. Okay, great. And they also set up Docker here, so it's ready for deployment. Okay, and it's just giving us feedback on how to run the application. Okay, so let's run the application here. So I'll just open up a terminal here. So you can just, up in the taskbar, you can just do new terminal. Okay, and then I'll just close this out here so we can see the terminal. Okay, and then we can just accept all the changes here. So click accept all. Okay, and then we can say run the application. Okay, and then run this one here. Okay, and then when you're seeing the commands run, if you want to get a full detailed view, then you can click into it here, and then it's showing you what it's doing here exactly. Okay, so now it's setting up the front end here. Okay, so it's saying we need to add in the database credentials, but we can just skip that for now. Just want to see the front end first, so we'll run the front end here. Okay, and let's just go into our terminal again. Okay, I'll just minimize this and go into the front end. Okay, and then over here we can do npm start. Okay, and then we can go to localhost 3000. So let me just open up my browser here. Okay, and then we'll run npm run dev here on the backend here too. Okay, so it's just getting an error because there's no database. Okay, so let me just connect the database first here. Okay, and then over here we just npm run dev as well, just to turn on the backend API. And again, we're getting some errors here due to not connecting the database. But if we check our front end terminal here, so now the build has been completed, and let's just check to see the application. And awesome, so this is our to-do list app here. So it added the categories as well as the to-do. Okay, so there's just an issue where we need to add our own categories after. But yeah, so this is great. It just created this with just one command, make revisions. So let's just add in our database so we can see the backend working. So I'll just go back into Cursor. Okay, and then I'm just asking it here to change it to SQLite. And then I'll just terminate the two terminals here. Okay, great. So it seemed to have rewritten the database to SQLite, so we can accept all here. Okay, and then I'll just install the dependencies. And then it'll rerun the application here after. Okay, so now we just need to run our backend and front end. So just open terminal and then run these commands. Okay, great. So let's have a look at our application now. Okay, so loading our to-dos. So do the dishes, get done by this evening. Okay, and add to do, failed to create to do. Okay, let's just feed this to Cursor and see what it says. Okay, so now just gonna do some testing of the API endpoints. Okay, so just run these commands that it's suggesting as it's testing the API now. Okay, so it's just an issue with the port. It's being used by AirTune, so change the port. Okay, and then accept. And run the commands here. Okay, so we're still experiencing these errors here. It just has to do with the course policy. It just keeps getting blocked. That's why I tried doing it MySQL and we use SQLite instead. So let's just copy these errors and feed it to the model and see if this helps. So we just copy. And then we'll just stop the processes here. Okay, and then I'll just say these are the console errors. Okay, and I'll just close out the terminals here. Okay, so let's see if this works now. Okay, great. So now it's using a new port. So let's see if this fixes the issue. So just open the terminal and then run these commands. Okay, and test out the API now. Okay, great. So now the data is being persisted to SQLite. So now let's run these commands and we can connect the front end now. Okay, open terminal and run the front end on port 3000. Okay, let's go back to our browser and reload the application. Okay, so now we're not seeing that error. So let's enter in to do. So let's see, dishes finished by this evening. Okay, and then add to do. Awesome. So now our to do is being persisted. So let's just do a check mark here. Okay, and then just over here, you can do the edits as well. Okay, and then they added the categories here, but it's just doubled just due to probably the database being run twice. Okay, so you can choose a category here and save. As well as you can delete the to do here as well after. So great, so this is a working application. So we were able to create this full stack application using Cursor. So it took a bit of debugging, but again, it helps that you understand the basic concepts of web development. So the main issue was the backend wasn't connected as port 5000 was already occupied. So by changing it to a different port, as well as using SQLite database first to test, as it's already an in-file database, it doesn't have to connect to an external service. That helped with debugging the app, and now we have a functioning app. And then you can continue to build upon this application. This concludes the end of the tutorial. I hope you're able to learn more about cursor and vibe coding. If you need help with developing any apps or software applications, then you can contact me at Maplet Media. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date on my latest videos, and thanks for watching.